What's going on, beautiful people? It is Lamont Cordell, and you're listening to On Second Thought. I have my man Nigel Tillman, right?
Yes.
Nigel Tillman here with me today. Currently a United States Marine Corps drill instructor.
Yes, sir.
Man, what made you walk down that path?
Honestly, it's just one of those things that I've always wanted to do. When initially at every Marine, we all have to go to boot camp, right? So as soon as I got there and I saw the way they carried themselves, I was like, you know what, one day I got to be in them shoes. You know, I felt as though I'm a very competitive person, and I felt like they had something better than me. And so I was like, you know what, I got to get there to show that I can do something and strive for something that's a little bit better than myself. So
Got you. When you say better, what about the drill instructor specifically kind of made you be like, that is dope, I need that?
The way they walk, their confidence. You know, I'm still a skinny guy, but I was always a real skinny guy, but just never as confident as they were. You know, when they walked into the room, they demanded your attention.
Of course.
They didn't even have to say anything. It just demanded your attention, and you wanted to be that. That's a grown man. That's how I want to be. So
Factual. I remember for sure, and like you said, they don't even have to say much in order to demand attention. But I do remember sitting there, everybody, you know, in that tight little box, left hand right,
Yep.
or left hand left knee, right hand right knee, and we're waiting on the drill instructors to come out. And when they came out, it was like they're robots.
Right.
Like the amount of discipline they had, I'm like, there's no way that's a human being.
Yeah.
And then after they finished the speech, they released the hounds, and then they started doing human-like movement, and I was like, okay, these are humans.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I just got myself into, but this is crazy. But I do remember that, and I've always had mad respect for drill instructors, and I still, to this day, anybody that's willing to go through boot camp twice, because essentially that's what you do when you go to drill instructor school,
yeah.
right?
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Anybody that's willing to do that, kudos to you. So the Marine Corps, right? What made you decide to utilize the Marine Corps as a career path?
Okay. So initially, I was in high school, and I was in a plumbing apprenticeship, right?
Okay.
And a Marine who was a part of that plumbing, the instructor that I had graduated some other guys before, right? And one of those guys walked in a United States Marine Corps uniform, right? And he was really proud of him. You know what I'm saying? So to see the instructor and that kind of involvement, that was the first initial experience I had with seeing a Marine, right? That, lo and behold, I went up to him to ask him, like, hey, what'd you do? Like, where'd you go? Whatever. He gave me his recruiter's information. And obviously, that's what they're supposed to do, right? So,
yeah.
He gave me his recruiter's information, and then I went down to a recruiting station. I was talking to a recruiter for a little while, and he said one key element that caught my attention as a kid from an area where not a lot of opportunities are provided. He said, free education. You do 4 years in this establishment, you give us 4 years, we'll give you a degree for college. You don't have to worry about it after that. That right there stuck with me, and I was like, you know what? I got to do this. There's no other way around it.
Green light.
It's got to happen. Because I knew that I wouldn't be able to pay for college. Like I said, I was a skinny kid, and I played football and other sports like that, but I didn't have something that was going to give me a scholarship or anything like that. Like, I wasn't the smartest kid in school. I just kind of got by, you know. So
Got you. So when that struck a chord with you, and that kind of was like, you know what, this is it, I got to make this the move. Did you think that you were only going to stick around for 4 years?
Absolutely, yeah. I was like, you know what, this is just a stepping stone for me. At that time, I wanted to. I always had dreams and aspirations to be something. I wanted to work in hotels. I wanted to be a hotel manager. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, because now I got a whole different career path that I want to do. But it was initially just a stepping stone. What can I do to get me in school paid for, and get into managing hotels, managing other people, managing my own, you know, storefront, that kind of deal. So
yes,
that's what that was.
Now, what made you stick around after that 4 years? Because everybody's reasoning is different. Because I did the same thing. I thought, I'm entering for 4 years. They're going to give me benefits. And if in 4 years they're giving me everything they're saying they're going to give me, there's absolutely no reason to stick around.
Right.
If all I have to do is the initial enlistment, and then I can take all those benefits and move along. What made you decide to stick around?
Honestly, so at the time of my life, I wasn't financially sound still, right? So that kept me in the Marine Corps, knowing that hey, every 2 weeks I'm gonna get a paycheck, right? And then, um, it was the travel. I had traveled to around that time frame, 4 different countries. You know what I mean? And from
In your first enlistment,
in my first enlistment.
where were the places you went to?
So I went to Okinawa, Japan first, right? Which as soon as I got that opportunity from the schoolhouse as a new Marine, I was like, you know what, I need to leave the country ASAP. None of my family members have ever left the country, outside of the ones who are in the military now, right? And I was like, you know what, I had never been on a plane before. I got on a plane, went to Okinawa, and was like, this is tight. Like just to see another culture, to see something, experience that, to be the minority where everybody around you is speaking a different language, and you have no idea what they're saying, but they're still friendly and that kind of thing. It blew my mind. I was like, you know what, I want to keep doing this.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I tell you what, and that's a completely different perspective than what I get from most people, because as most people know that or listen to the podcast or have looked at my social media, they know I was a recruiter.
Right.
A lot of the kids that I talk to upon enlistment, their main concern is being able to stay home. They're like, can I be somewhere close to home? What can I do to be close to home? And it always blows my mind. And I always try to express to them, I'm like, hey, look, you think you want to stay home. You think this is where you want to be until you have the opportunity to go elsewhere.
Right.
And that's how I was. I'm pretty sure I asked the same exact questions coming in. I wasn't one of those people that was like, I want to travel everywhere. As a matter of fact, when I got my orders to go to Hawaii, my first duty station, I about cried. I was like, I'm going to Hawaii. Like, I'm going to be living in Hawaii. I don't want to live in Hawaii. I want to go back to Texas. And they're like, first of all, we don't really have spots in Texas like that, bro. Like, the odds of you going there is slim to none. But you're going to Hawaii. And I'm like, whatever. Eventually, I got over it, went to Hawaii. Bro, had the time of my life in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Went out there. Like you said, the culture is different. I learned a lot about myself out there due to the fact that I was on my own. I was living my own life. Prior to that, I had never known life outside of being under the thumb of another adult.
Right.
And that was the first experience I had going and doing anything. And from there, I was like, yeah, the opportunities are endless. And a lot of these kids don't know that the moment that you remove yourself from your comfort zone and you go try and live somewhere else, you're like, hey, let's keep this going. Where else did you go?
So I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, then Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? I was stationed in Hawaii for 3-4 years, I think. And then after that, I went to Lejeune, right? Which is funny. I was only in Lejeune for about 1.5 years before I left for the depot. And that's stateside. I mean, Hawaii is still stateside, but it's not stateside. Excuse me. Being able to, or being back in the States, I hated it. I hated Lejeune. I honestly didn't like it because it was just too close to home. Family members were just too accessible to me, bothered me a little bit more than they usually do. And not to say that my family bothers me. It's more so, I like coming home and sharing where I've been and doing these things and motivating them to do things. But when we get together and we congregate and everything kind of gets stuck, I don't like that feeling.
You end up doing the same things you were doing prior to joining the military.
Right, exactly. And I don't like that. I didn't like that. I didn't like the...
I haven't been home in 7 years, right? And by choice. And the reason being, I went home on vacation once, twice total. But the second time I went, legitimately, I went to a party that was thrown by some of my cousins, ended up getting into some fights while I'm there. And I'm like, I left so I wouldn't be involved in stuff like this, come back to visit, and this is what I'm dealing with again. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. My hands are clean. I'm straight. But that, again, fantastic. My question for you now is the initial response from your family. What was that when you told them you were going to join the Marines?
My mom cried. And you know what's crazy is when I told her I had signed up, so my dad had custody of me. Right?
Okay.
My mom didn't have custody of me. I told my mom I was 17 when I signed up, right? Because I wanted to do it. I was like, you said free college? Let's do this. My dad signed the papers. And then when I went and told my mom, we were in like a Popeyes or something like that. And I told her sitting down. And she started bawling and just crying. And, it was just the craziest thing. I'll never forget that moment because she was just like, my little baby is growing up trying to go be something. I don't know why he wants to do that, but.
Did she ever express to you why it was was it a like sad happy, or was it sad that you were joining the military? Like, what was her reaction? Like,
she knows my personality, right? I've always been that kid. Like I moved out of her house, and eventually I moved back in with my dad. But I was on my own at 16. You know what I'm saying? Living with other people, paying rent, had my own job. I had 2 jobs before the Marine Corps, and it was one of those things where she was like, he's really, because when I leave the house, I go on adventures. I don't come back for weeks. You know? So it was one of those things where she was like, oh, he's never coming back. I think that's how she felt. You know?
Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily concerned for your well-being. Mm-hmm. It was more or less concerned about, hey, my son is probably about to go on this adventure and he ain't coming back.
He ain't coming back.
But my mom initially was like, no, thank you. And for me, same thing. 16 years old, I was no longer living at my mom's house. I was bouncing from house to house. Like I stayed at other friends' houses for periods of time, so on and so forth. And when I made the phone call, I was 20 years old when I joined. So late. Wish I would have done it at 18. If I could have done it, if someone would have slapped me in the back of the head and said do it at 17, I'd have done it at 17. So kudos to you for that, because you got to jump on your career. But I look at that and I told her, and she was like, no. And I was like, Mom, courtesy call. Love you to death, but you know, this is what I'm getting ready to go do. Yeah. And haven't looked back since, right? And one thing I tried to express to people all the time is a lot of people are scared of the military because it's the unknown. You don't know what to expect from it. And that was a lot of my concerns. That was a lot of my mom's concerns. But now, fast forward to where we are in our relationship, how you know, we communicate now. She swears up and down it was, hey, I always thought it was a good idea. You know, I never have to worry about you. You're taken care of. Your family's taken care of. You're doing your thing. And it's crazy to see the difference in reaction once they see that there's a lot of benefit to it. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but where I'm from, a lot of the stigma is Black people don't join the military. That's not what we do. You know, that's not meant for us. Yeah. And the craziest thing about it is I've had family members join after me because now they see what the benefit was, right? Mm-hmm. So you got other family in the military as well?
Yes, I have some cousins, and who I'm actually the first Marine in my family, right? But outside of that, I have cousins who joined before me. They went into the Army and that kind of thing. But I didn't really know them like that. The ones that I do know, they joined after me, and they're doing really well too. Traveling the country, traveling the world as well too. You know, so it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So young in your career, right? You're still relatively young in your career. You still got 12 plus years to go. Yeah. Even more if you decide to stick around longer than that. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you're learning now in your career that you wish you would have known were a benefit, or things that you could take advantage of earlier in your career?
The first thing that popped in my head is definitely finances, right? Finances is, to be honest, you can't do anything in this world, no matter what people say. Like, money doesn't make you happy. It doesn't have to make you happy. You still can't survive without it, yes. Right? You can't eat, which you need to nourish your body. You can't sleep because you need to have a roof over your head, and those things cost money, right? So taking care of my finances a little bit earlier is one things that I preach to my junior Marines, and one things that I wish that I would have took serious a little bit more. So yeah.
Likewise, that as a matter of fact, that may be the number one thing on my list that I wish I would have paid closer attention to. And again, I preach it to my Marines all the time. The people that I've enlisted, if they're listening to this podcast, I guarantee you they will let you know. I'm like, hey, you need to start investing. You need to make sure that anything that the Marine Corps offers for retirement, that you're putting money into, right. And that you're actively paying attention to how to make that stuff grow. Because regardless of whether or not you decide to stick around for 4 years or you decide to do the full 20, you have the ability, once you join the Marine Corps, to have a well of money by the time you leave.
Absolutely.
Right? And we were talking about it before we started the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. For me, at a young age, because of my financial situations leading up to joining the military, not really having much, not really understanding what financial intelligence was, as soon as I started earning a paycheck in the Marine Corps, I wasn't saving any of it. I was blowing it all. I was popping bottles with my friends. I was going and buying unnecessary articles of clothing that were expensive for no reason. And I don't even know where those clothes are now to this day. So I spent the money, have nothing to show for it except for the debt that I created. What is your story coming into?
So my story, I'll never forget it, right? Because it blew my mind how fast I spent my money. I remember I lost. So coming from boot camp, we get like a little debit card, right? Debit card. and I had that, but I lost it. So I was at the schoolhouse, doing my thing, whatever, learning what I need to learn for the Marine Corps, my Marine Corps MOS. I lost my card. I go to Navy Federal, which is the bank that we all use pretty much. And I go in there and I'm like, hey, I just need a new card, whatever. So she's taking care of me there. Lady sits there and she asks me, she's like, hey, would you like to apply for a credit card? I said, what's that? I don't know what that is. And she was like, you know what a credit card is? So she started explaining to me. So I was like, you're going to give me $5,000 and all I have to do is make a payment of what? $150 a month? And I get paid every 2 weeks? That's a steal for me. Like, go ahead. Let's go ahead and do the credit card. I spent all that money within 4 days. All of it gone.
Do you remember what you spent it on?
Absolutely not. not even a little bit. I know hotels were involved. I know bottles, like you said, were involved, right? I was buying the bottles, but hey. Yeah, it was just a good time. I just had a lot of good times with a whole bunch of friends. I like when I go out or when I have people around, I like to not necessarily be the life of the party, but I make sure that there is life in the party.
Yes, yes, that makes sense.
That's how I roll, yeah.
So initially, no knowledge of what a credit card was off the bat. Mm-hmm. And I think that seems to be a common trend in regards to people that don't understand finances, rather. You go into that situation thinking that's free money. Mm-hmm. I get to spend the money, and yes, I get to pay it back a little bit at a time, but easy because I get paid every 2 weeks, right? And then before you know it, and I don't know if they did the same thing to you that they did to me, but they were increasing my credit limit without asking me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So initially, my initial credit card was $10K. Like off the bat, they were like $10,000. And I'm like, oh, this is love. Yeah. Like, swipe it. Like, I'd be out with my friends and I'm like, what are we doing? Hey, everything on me today, boys. Everything. Like, swipe it. And then before I know it, I'm like $10,000 in. And I'm like, my paycheck ain't keeping up with this now.
Right.
And then I ended up borrowing money to make up for that money. And it starts digging a hole. Yeah. It starts digging a hole. And as a young man, I 110% wish that I had someone that would have said, hey, brother, what you're doing with your finances is not going to do you well. Right. And I wasn't setting any money aside. I wasn't doing any of that. I was spending it all.
That's it.
Spending it all. And again, had nothing to show for it. As a matter of fact, as a Lance Cooley, I was a single father for the better half of 6 years, right? Mm-hmm. So I was living in base housing as a Lance Corporal.
Oh, wow.
What would have been the smart thing, now that, with your knowledge now, would have been the smart thing for me to do as a Lance Corporal with BAH?
With BAH, right? Okay. Now, I got a question with that, though. So how much of it, when you were in base housing? Right?
I was in base housing.
Were they taking all of the BAH?
They were taking all of it.
All of it? Okay. Well, you're still living in base housing, so I don't know. Honestly, if it was me, I would say with your paychecks, my rule of thumb is if it's over 10% of the purchase price, right? So if you times it by 10 and 10% of that is the purchase price, I don't spend more than that. I can't spend more than that, right? So let's say something is $100, right? If I don't have $1,000 in my bank account, I'm not going to spend that money, right? I'm not going to buy whatever that $100 was. So whatever it is, I have to make sure that I have a plethora of that inside of my bank account, right?
And that's smart.
And that's the smartest way that I move now, and that's something I wish that I do as a Lance Corporal, because now in my life, a lot of these things don't matter. You're gonna buy something and it's not gonna be worth it in 6 months. Like, there's a lot of things that I used to have. My clothes that I wear now are really simple: t-shirt, some nice slacks, some nice shoes. That's it.
Easy.
I don't need a whole bunch of flashy, like all that kind of stuff. No, I don't need all of that.
Yeah.
So everything that I own now, besides my car and the house, is paid for.
See, now for me, what I wish is I had someone tell me, Lance Corporal, why are you living in base housing? One, you get paid BAH, which honestly is the ability to pay for your mortgage without it coming out of your paycheck for being a Marine.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Go buy a home. Go buy a home, because guess what? Now, how many homes have you had at this point?
I'm sitting at 3 now.
Three homes.
3 homes.
Have you made a profit on each of those homes?
No, not the first one. The last 2, yeah.
Okay, but the last 2.
Yeah.
And with that being said, that generally speaking, depending on area, which San Diego, you're probably gonna make out 9 times out of 10 if you stay in the property long enough. Each time I've been in my properties or lived on base for 3 years plus. So as a Lance Corporal, I could have bought a home down in Oceanside, had it for 3 years, either rented it out or sold it. When I went to Okie, granted I couldn't buy property in Okie. You can, I think you can lease places out there, off base, but you cannot buy property out there. I don't think. But even in Hawaii, I could have bought property in Hawaii. My first enlistment, Absolutely. But I didn't. So here I am. I was 2 enlistments deep, and my entire time in the Marine Corps, because I had been either married or a parent, could have been buying property the whole time. Yeah. And instead, the first house I bought was when I met my current wife. Yeah. And it's like, bro, where could you have been in regards to your finances had you only had the knowledge then?
Absolutely. That's such a big deal. And it's one of those things where guys like us, right, NCOs, staff NCOs, have to explain to these younger Marines and even older Marines, because even now, like, it's never too late to buy property, especially right now. It's more of a seller's market out here in California, but there's other places like Texas, Florida, Virginia. Those places right now it's a buyer's and seller's market, and houses are getting sold and bought like hotcakes. You know what I mean? So,
well, I think the problem is people get one track minded, right? So when you say buying and selling property, they think, oh, buy and sell where I'm at. Because I can't keep eyes on my home in Texas. Well, guess what? That's what a property manager is for.
Absolutely, yep.
So on and so forth. So it's like you said, there's hot markets everywhere. And if I know anything, recently I've seen an abundance of people picking up and moving from Cali to the great state of Texas. That's where I'm from, by the way. I see them picking up and moving to the great state of Texas. But even then, there's a lot of financial advisors, people that I follow on Instagram that I look at, and they live in Massachusetts. They live in freaking Virginia. They live in these different places, Nevada. But they own property in Texas. They own property in New York. They own property. You don't have to live in the place to own property there. You legitimately just have to be able to fund it. Which in the Marine Corps, you use stuff like the VA loan. You have all these different benefits at your disposal that legitimately allow you to kind of use a cheat code in life. And if you're not using those things, you're setting yourself up for a whole L.
1,000%.
Like right now, you're selling your home.
Yep.
Banking on the profits, and then guess what? While everybody else is buying into a seller's market, what are you about to do?
I'm going right on base. I'm going to keep my money in my pocket and wait for the market to change. It's going to shift again. It's just how it works. It has to. You know what I mean? It can't be a seller's market forever. And I pay attention to real estate because I believe that real estate is one of the best financial wealth builders that you can have. It's an extremely good asset, especially being in the military and, like you said, using the sources that we have, like the VA loan and those kind of things, right? Eventually, my big top goal is to have around 10 rental properties that's creating passive income or mailbox money for myself. You know what I mean?
There you go.
That's I think every Marine or every service member should be playing a role with real estate because it helps the economy. Real estate helps the economy. So, and that's one thing we gotta do. You know what I mean? So, to build a better America is, put back into the economy. So.
And then not only that, that's generational wealth you end up creating. That's stuff that your kids get to take advantage of. And now instead of, from where you are, you started from the ground up because, you came from not having much to now having the ability to have everything at your disposal. Yeah. And when you get those 10 rental properties, not if you get those 10 rental properties, when you get them, and then you go on and, life is done for you, your kids now have the ability to, one, either take over that, or two, gain live off the capital gain and then freaking do whatever they want to do. Absolutely. And that's fantastic. Yep. And that's something that we don't look at coming into it. And it's weird because I remember as a teenager, people telling me to plan for the future. And I used to always say, plastic bag floating in the wind. I just want to do what I want to do right now in this moment. I like future will come when the future comes. I'll let future Lamont deal with that. That used to be one of my biggest statements. I let future Lamont deal with that.
Crazy. Huh.
But now I look at it and I'm like, bro, future Lamont's dealing with it now.
Exactly. Yeah, every second you're taking that next step into the future. So yeah.
So it's crazy to hear the mental growth, the growth in your goals. You went from wanting to manage properties, hotels, to wanting to own them.
Yeah.
And what do you think creates that shift for you? What gave you that idea? What brings that home for you? Is there anybody that kind of influences that for you, or?
Not necessarily, right? But I guess where it comes from is being able to do what I want when I want, right? Having ownership versus being an employee is important to me because I don't want to be on someone else's time. I want to be on my time. I want to move on when I want to move, right?
Yeah.
If I want to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning and stay up a whole 24 hours, I can do that. But if I want to go to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and then be off by 10, I can still do that as well. You know, so that is my biggest motivation for it, I guess you could say.
Okay. And because for some people that doesn't matter to them. There's people out there that are cool with punching a clock and saying, hey, I know every day this is what I'm going to do from this time to this time, and it's Groundhog's Day and like clockwork, that's what I'm going to do.
That's fine. Come work for me.
Well, what makes you feel as if that is not the infrastructure for your life? What?
I love to travel. Being in the military, I've been exposed to something where you need time. Time is important. You need time in order to travel the world, and I love to travel the world. I want to show my kids different cultures. I want to take them with me and be like, hey, this is how people eat here, or this is how they talk here, and it's the reason why they do this. They drive on the other side of the road because of this reason. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I show them, experience the world. Like, you have a map right here, and there's only a certain amount, a certain percentage of people of, you know, cultures, right, who are going to experience all these different places. I mean, I want to be a part of that. So.
Well, and that it kind of opens doors for other people to know of like different ethnic backgrounds that otherwise don't understand that these opportunities are available to everybody.
Right.
As long as you set yourself up in order to do that, freaking, you have the ability to go experience these other cultures, man. There's nothing more exciting than to be able to sit at a Japanese restaurant and explain to them why you don't stick your chopsticks in your food because it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And I didn't know that. You asked me prior to going to Japan and having the knowledge, chopsticks going in the food.
Right.
You know? I don't know any better.
Yeah.
First of all, you couldn't pay me to use a chopstick in the first place. Like, what are we doing here? Give me a fork.
Yeah.
Right? But you get to expose your children to that. But not only that, when you know, people of our ethnic background see someone that is similar going and experiencing that and from the same place, they get to say, oh shit,
this is available to me. I can do this too.
It's a possibility.
Right.
We can do that. And for the life of me, it blows my mind how many people are oblivious to the fact that it's a possibility.
Absolutely.
We just don't have the knowledge base. We don't understand in most cases how to get ourselves and position ourselves to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like people like yourself, people like myself that have started to set themselves up, that's the light of beacon. That's showing the way.
And on the other end of that too, right? It also gives the other side. So let's say I'll give an example, right? I went to Romania.
Mm-hmm.
And Romania wasn't necessarily a culture shock to me because I had been to plenty of other countries already, right? So I knew it was going to be different. I knew that going to this country, something was going to be different, right?
Yeah.
To me, it was cool. But to watch people's reactions to seeing me blew my mind a little bit because they were, wait a minute, wow, that's different. You know, like it was everywhere. And there was no like, there was nothing hatred towards it or anything like that. It was just different for them, right? They would stare. They come up and ask questions. I got a lot of pictures taken. Yeah, like I felt like a mini celebrity. Like I was just walking around. People were just, can I have a picture with you? Like it was the craziest thing in the world. And that's important to not only myself but the people who are gonna go there after me. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be a norm. Like, but as long as it's not malicious in any way, I believe that it's a beautiful thing that needs to continue to happen. Like there's countries out there who have never seen someone as chocolate as me. You know what I mean? So,
and like you said, not just for the people coming after you that are going to go visit those countries, but for the people of that country to experience that, to say, hey, there are other people around here, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know? And it's like, even within our own country, we have states that these young Marines come in and they're like, I've never seen a Hispanic person or a black person or an Asian person. And it's like, what? That's a real life thing still happening. But imagine if that's happening in our own country.
Right.
When you go to countries like Romania, where there's probably hubs of the country that have black people in them, but very, very small, very small amounts.
Absolutely.
So when you go out there and you expose them to that experience, they're like, oh, well, that's different. And not only is it different, but they kind of navigate the same way we do.
Right.
They eat the same way we do. We eat and drink. We laugh. We joke. We have different backgrounds. But for the most part, oh shit, you're a human. You're a regular person. You know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's beautiful. And I completely agree with you. I think that time is necessary in order to be able to do that. And that's my goal right now. 110% my goal. I told my old lady, I have 7 years left in the Marine Corps. My goal at the end of 7 years is for us to be set up to where if she doesn't want to have to work, if she doesn't want to have to go and punch a clock or do anything, she doesn't have to. We have the ability to sustain our life and do exactly what we want to do based off of the decisions that we made while we have the security blanket of the Marine Corps, right? And that's why I urge a lot of junior Marines, and we spoke about it prior to starting the podcast. I'm very adamant. I talk to everybody about, like, even if you're not looking for the information, where are you putting your money? What are you doing with your money? Are you spending all of it? Invasive almost. Yeah. Because I feel like I didn't get that enough. Because maybe I did and I just wasn't listening.
The truth.
But I feel like if I had somebody that was obnoxious enough to be like, hey, eventually I would have been like, all right, maybe I should go at least look into it because there's something to it because this guy or a girl won't leave me alone.
Right.
You know, but I didn't have that. So I'm that now. I go and I talk to Marines and I'm getting ready to head back to the fleet right now. And rest assure you, I'm going to sit my Marines down and they're going to have to listen to me talk to them about their financial decisions. And I'm not going to be intrusive to the point where I'm like, you're not going to buy that or you're not going to do that. Right. But to the point to where at least I give them enough knowledge in order for them to be like,
it's important.
Okay, this is important, and maybe I need to start doing something that's going to move me in the direction for me to be financially stable as well. Absolutely. Because one, a lot of Marines end up either sticking around because they didn't make the right financial decisions, which was my case. Yeah. And some of it, don't get me wrong, a lot of it is because I do love being around Marines too. But it also has a lot to do with me making the wrong financial decisions. And if that continues to be the case through the entirety of your career, 9 times out of 10, you end up retiring and you have nothing except for the retirement check that you're going to get, which, let's be honest, you're not going to completely live off that retirement check. Right. So like you said, rental properties, any other thing that you can do to set yourself up to have passive income. Right. So aside from that, travel, owning properties, what is it that you see in the future for yourself? What do you want to do?
Oh man, just be a good family man. Like I love taking care of my family, my kids, and all that kind of things. And I just want to expose them to a different world. You know, I want to be what I didn't have. You know, so not saying my father wasn't a good father, but there was a lot of things that I wish he would have done better. Right, and so that's the only thing you can hope for your kids, that they're better than you. And so I just want to teach my family better way to live, better way to survive. That's pretty much it. Have some passive income, retire from the military, which is another source of passive income. That's me in a nutshell. It's really simple. I just want to be able to live freely, do what I want when I want. You know, whatever comes up that day when I wake up, let's hit it.
All right, cool. So with that being said, brother, I got 2 questions for you. Yep. And I don't know if you listen to any of the other podcasts, so hopefully you're prepared for them. But first one, if you had one thing that you could change about yourself right now at the drop of a hat that would potentially improve you or, make life a little bit easier for you, what would be the thing that you would change?
Patience.
Why?
I actually be a little bit more patient of myself. A lot of times, like it, and I can play it to anything in any aspect of my life, right? I get too deep into things and I don't think, right? If I'm a little bit more patient, I can think about it a little bit more and adjust and be on I guess on a better path. So patience.
So when you say that, do you mean once you're enveloped in whatever you're doing, the blinders come on and you don't really pay attention to where you're struggling or where you could have improved or done something differently. It's just kind of, I'm going and hopefully it pans out, and I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
I find myself doing that too. So I understand what you mean. And one thing that I can compare it to that I realized that I do it at is when I hoop. I play basketball, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that there are certain times where the game comes natural. And when it's coming natural and I'm having patience with myself, I'm finding the open player, I'm hitting the open shots, I'm doing what I need to do to navigate the court properly.
Yeah.
But then if I'm on the court and I'm just going and I'm trying to act before I'm allowing myself to really view the court,
absolutely,
I end up making mistakes. I'm throwing turnovers. I'm taking shots that weren't open. I'm dribbling the ball off my feet.
Yeah.
And I do find myself not only doing that on the court, but in certain instances in my life where if I'm rushing into stuff, I'm like, how did I get here? I messed this up somehow. Don't know where I messed it up, but I did.
Right.
But then when I have moments where I take a step back, I analyze the situation, I look at my life, and I'm like, okay, this way, not that way, this way. Boom.
Absolutely.
And then things start to unfold.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in my life too where it's been, I had to, once I did have the patience to sit down and think about things, there's a lot of things that I've rushed into that I did not mean to, and I could have been in a better situation than I am right now. Don't get me wrong, I'm still blessed enough to be where I am.
Yeah.
Right? But now in my lifetime, it's time to sit back, relax, and just watch and pay attention and have patience to do what I'm going to do next. So
that's great. Yeah. Second question is, if you had a quality within yourself, something that you possess that you could bottle up and administer to the world at large in order for them to take advantage of it as well, what would that quality be that you would distribute?
Easy. Love. Love.
Okay.
100%. We don't have enough love in this world. Don't get me wrong. Love is always going to be beat hate, but man, it's a lot of hateful people out there. And I just want, if I could bottle that up and give and you know what? Mostly to the children too. Like not necessarily to the adults, because people, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You know, in my mindset, you can, but it's extremely hard. But if you can change the youth's mind about a lot of things, right, and what they're teaching, the crazy stuff that's being taught, we're gonna be a better world, a better society everywhere. You know what I mean? So love is the one thing I give out if I can bottle it up. You know what I mean?
Man, that's a gem. If I have ever heard one, that is a gem. And I feel the same way. I made a post in regards to the situation we had during the withdrawal in Afghanistan. And I said, honestly, I don't know what to say about it. All I know is the world needs a little bit of love, but I know it's also not that simple.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that if at some point, some way, we were capable of understanding that a lot of the reason why there's so much conflict is we just don't understand one another, but we also aren't willing to take the time to understand one another,
right,
that there could be a lot of change. And the sad part is you can only change it at your level.
Absolutely.
The only thing you could do is impact and affect people at your level. And for a lot of people, that it feels like it's not enough, but I rest assure you it is. So if that's what you want to administer, distribute, brother, keep doing it. I feel that that's something that you are adamant at doing. It sounds like there's a lot of passion that comes from that. That's something that I'm adamant about. So I try to dispute it as much as I can at my level, and hopes that, you know, it's a drop in the bucket of water and that just continues to spread. So
absolutely. Yeah.
With that being said, I appreciate y'all for listening. If you've listened all the way up to this point, I appreciate your time. And until next time, y'all, peace, love, and happiness.